Okay, today we're talking about the brain and the cranial nerves. The brain, as you know, is part of the central nervous system. If we start off over here, you can see that we have a cross section of the brain, and then here the whole intact brain together. This would be the front of the brain over here, the top, and then the bottom. The majority portion of the brain, all of this area is known as the cerebrum. And then we take this out carefully underneath here on the back, on the bottom on the back, so inferior, posterior area, this is the cerebellum. And right here is known as your brainstem. So we're going to look at all the various parts of this. So this is what it looks like as a whole, and then I say the cross section of it. It's kind of nice to get different perspectives of it. And this cross section, so this is going to be the front, this is the back. You have a major fissure in the middle that divides the cerebrum into a right and a left hemisphere. As the nerves are coming up from the spinal cord, which would be down here, and then it comes up through the brainstem, the nerves do cross over. So yes, it's true that the left side of the brain is controlling the right side of the body, and the right side of the brain controls the left side of the body. In the cerebrum, you often have some nerves that will transfer from one side to the other hemisphere. So they'll pass between the hemispheres, and that connection is this area right here, which is known as the corpus callosum. That is where the nerves connect from one hemisphere to the other in the cerebrum. This area right in here is known as the diencephalon. It contains the thalamus, the hypothalamus. Hypothalamus is very, very important in helping to regulate and maintain homeostasis, keeping everything in that equilibrium for the body. And then you have things such as your pituitary gland down this, extending off of the hypothalamus, and then the pineal gland is over here. Just very generally speaking, a lot of the motor functions are in this frontal lobe, and sensory tends to be a little bit further back. The brain is divided into lobes, and the names are given according to the location, like the frontal, the parietal, the occipital lobe. And so once again, that's where your anatomical location terminology comes into play. Now, if we look at this model here and we take it apart, we separate once again into the halves, like this. You can see very well that the majority of the brain is the cerebrum. This right here is the brainstem, and it is composed of, you have the pons, which is kind of the swollen area, it looks like right here. That's the pons. It's part of the brainstem. And then beneath that is the medulla. Oftentimes the full name is called the medulla oblongata, so you can use that name. And then that extends and becomes continuous with the spinal cord. This right here is your cerebellum. If we take this apart, the cerebellum also has two hemispheres, and if you do a cross section, you can see here, you can also see over on this model, they have all that white branching. It looks like a tree with a lot of branches, and that's what we call the arbor vitae, which does translate to tree of life. One thing that you'll notice if you do a dissection of a brain, it actually looks grayer on the outside, and on the internal portion you do see this white branching like that. That's what it actually looks like. With the brain, the gray matter tends to be more on the superficial or outside areas, and the white matter is internal. That's opposite of what you're going to find in the spinal cord. And then this is, we take this apart here, you've got where you can see here once again the white matter in the cerebrum. It's also interior. Superficial is going to be the gray matter. And then and here we do have the brainstem, and this is the diencephalon, which is composed of components such as the thalamus, hypothalamus, your pituitary gland, pineal gland, etc. We do have the cranial nerves. There are 12 pairs of those that come off of the brain. They will service, most of them will service and innervate areas on the brain, except for one, which is the vagus nerve, which does extend down to the thoracic area. These cranial nerves, if I hold this model of this brain here, that's what these white areas are indicating, are the 12 pairs of the cranial nerves. Not all of them are marked, but the larger ones are. To learn the names of them, start up at the top here with the olfactory bulbs and work down in order, and they are numbered. They're given a number as well as a name. And so it's best to start at the top and then work down towards the cerebellum along this area for the naming of them. It's like anything, just practice. Repetition is going to make it easier. So you can use the other resources where they're obviously going to be able to be seen a little bit better than on this model in terms of the identification of them. But that's just a very brief kind of introduction to the brain. You'll notice that, yes, the surface of the brain, on all these models you can tell, it has the ridges, the sulci. This is increasing surface area. Once again, whenever you see something that's not just a smooth flat surface, but you see all those invaginations, that's increasing surface area. It's allowing for more areas for processing to occur. And it's often described as kind of looking like a walnut. But that's a brief summary of what the brain and cranial nerves are.